The little girl's innocent question echoed through the crowded terminal, cutting through the noise like a bell. No one could have predicted how those simple words would change two lives forever that rainy Tuesday afternoon. If you've ever felt lost in your own life, this story might just help you find your way home. James Harrington sat alone at gate B17, his tailored suit and polished shoes marking him as someone important, someone with places to be. But his eyes told a different story, vacant, staring at nothing in particular as announcements of delayed flights blared overhead. The 47-year-old CEO of Harrington Global had just closed another 8-figure deal, yet the victory felt hollow, like everything else in his life lately. The terminal buzzed with activity around him, families reuniting, business travelers rushing, airport staff directing the human traffic. But James sat in his own bubble of isolation, checking his watch occasionally though he had nowhere urgent to be. His flight to Singapore, where another meaningless business triumph awaited, had been delayed by 3 hours due to storms. His phone buzzed with a message from his assistant, "Board approves acquisition. Stock up 3%. Congratulations." James didn't bother responding. 5 years ago, this news would have elated him. Now it barely registered. Another deal, another zero in his bank account, another empty hotel room in another forgettable city. "Are you lost too, mister?" The small voice startled him from his thoughts. James looked down to find a girl no older than 7 standing before him, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit. Her curly hair was pulled into uneven pigtails, and her yellow raincoat was dotted with cartoon frogs. What struck him most were her eyes, wide, curious, but with a hint of worry that seemed too mature for her age. "Excuse me?" James replied, his voice rusty from disuse. "I asked if you're lost too," she repeated patiently. "You look sad, like me when I can't find my way." Something about her directness caught him off guard. 20 years of corporate negotiations hadn't prepared him for such a disarmingly honest question. "I suppose I am," he admitted, surprising himself with his candor. "But not in the way you might think." The girl nodded solemnly as if this made perfect sense. "I'm Sophie. I'm lost for real. My mommy went to get us snacks, but then all these people came, and now I can't see her anywhere." Her bottom lip trembled slightly, but she was trying hard to be brave. James felt something stir within him, a protective instinct he hadn't experienced since before his divorce 3 years ago, before his daughter moved across the country with his ex-wife. "Well, Sophie, my name is James. And I think we should find your mom together." Sophie's face brightened. "Really? You'll help me?" "Of course," James said, standing and offering his hand. "That's what friends do." Sophie slipped her small hand into his, and the trust in that simple gesture made something tighten in James's chest. When was the last time anyone had trusted him so completely? In the corporate world, trust was a commodity to be leveraged, not freely given. "Mr. Hopscotch is lost too," Sophie said, holding up her rabbit. "He gets scared in big places with lots of noise." James nodded seriously. "I understand. Big places can be overwhelming sometimes, even for grown-ups." As they walked through the terminal, Sophie chatted about her rabbit, her upcoming vacation to visit her grandmother, and how airplanes stay in the sky, magic and science mixed together. James found himself smiling genuinely for the first time in months. "So why are you lost, Mr. James?" Sophie asked suddenly. "Did you lose your mommy too?" James chuckled. "No, not exactly." He paused, considering how to explain existential emptiness to a child. "I have a big job where I tell people what to do all day. I have a nice house and a fancy car. But sometimes I wonder if I'm where I'm supposed to be." Sophie nodded thoughtfully. "My teacher says being lost isn't always about not knowing where you are. Sometimes it's about not knowing where you belong." James stopped walking, stunned by the profound wisdom in her words. "Your teacher sounds very smart." "She is. She has glasses and everything," Sophie confirmed seriously. They passed a gift shop, and Sophie's eyes widened at a display of colorful toy planes. James noticed her fascination. "Would Mr. Hopscotch like a plane to travel in?" he asked. Sophie's eyes lit up, but then dimmed. "Mommy says we have to be careful with money for our trip." "Well, consider it a gift from a fellow traveler," James said, leading her into the shop. The simple joy on Sophie's face as she selected a small blue and yellow plane was worth far more than the $15 it cost. As they continued their search, James found himself opening up to this child in a way he hadn't with anyone in years. He told her about Emma, his 14-year-old daughter who now lived in Seattle with his ex-wife. How they used to go hiking every weekend, identifying birds and plants together. How Emma had once wanted to be a botanist, but he didn't know if that was still her dream. "Why don't you know?" Sophie asked, her directness cutting to the heart of the matter. James sighed. "I've been very busy with work. We don't talk as much as we should." "But she's your little girl," Sophie said, confused. "Don't daddies always have time for their little girls?" The innocent question hit James like a physical blow. He remembered the last time Emma had called, her school science fair. He'd been in a meeting and promised to call back, but never did. That was 2 months ago. "They should," he said quietly. "Good daddies always make time." Sophie squeezed his hand. "I think you're a good daddy who forgot for a little while. You can remember again." They approached the food court, scanning the crowded tables for Sophie's mother. James realized he'd been so caught up in their conversation that he hadn't properly asked for details that might help locate her. "Sophie, what does your mom look like? What is she wearing today?" Sophie scrunched her face in concentration. "She has hair like mine but longer. She's wearing a blue sweater with stars on it. And she has a big purple bag that she carries everything in." James nodded, scanning the area more systematically now. "And what's her name? If we need to have her paged." "Mommy," Sophie said simply, then giggled at James's expression. "Just kidding. Her name is Olivia. Olivia Chen." As they circled the food court, James noticed a woman frantically moving from table to table, showing something on her phone to strangers. Her curly hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and even from a distance, he could see the panic in her movements. The blue sweater with silver stars confirmed his suspicion. "Sophie, I think I see your mom over there," he said, pointing. Sophie followed his gaze and immediately let out a squeal of delight. "Mommy," she called out, waving her free hand wildly. The woman's head snapped up, and her face transformed from panic to overwhelming relief. "Sophie!" She rushed toward them, dropping to her knees and enveloping her daughter in a fierce hug. "Oh my God, I've been looking everywhere. Where did you go? I was so worried." "I'm sorry, Mommy," Sophie said, her voice muffled against her mother's shoulder. "I saw a big airplane out the window and went to look, and then I couldn't find you. But I found Mr. James, and he was lost too, but in a different way, and we helped each other." Olivia looked up at James, tears of relief streaming down her face. "Thank you so much. I only turned away for a second to pay, and then she was gone. I've been terrified." "It was my pleasure," James said sincerely. "Sophie is quite the remarkable young lady. She's very wise for her age." Olivia stood, keeping a firm grip on Sophie's hand. "She certainly is. Sometimes too wise." She smiled fondly at her daughter. "I'm Olivia Chen. I can't thank you enough for helping her." "James Harrington," he replied, extending his hand. "And really, I think she helped me more than I helped her." Olivia tilted her head curiously. "How so?" James hesitated, unsure how to explain the profound effect Sophie's innocent questions had on him. "Let's just say your daughter asked me some questions I've been avoiding for a long time." Sophie tugged on her mother's sweater. Mr. James forgot how to be a good daddy, but I told him he can remember again. Olivia's eyes widened slightly, and she gave James an apologetic look. Sophie has never mastered the art of tact. James laughed, a genuine laugh that felt foreign in his throat. It's quite all right. She's absolutely right. An announcement blared overhead, calling for final boarding of a flight to Portland. Olivia checked her watch. That's us. We need to get to our gate. She looked at James with sincere gratitude. Thank you again. You're a good man, Mr. Harrington. Safe travels, James said, suddenly reluctant to say goodbye to this little girl who had inadvertently shaken the foundations of his carefully constructed life. Sophie broke free from her mother's grip and ran back to James, wrapping her arms around his legs in a tight hug. Remember, Mr. James. Being lost isn't always bad if it helps you find where you really belong. James knelt down to her level and returned the hug. I'll remember, Sophie. Thank you for finding me today. As he watched them hurry toward their gate, Sophie turning once to wave her new toy plane at him, James felt something shift inside him. He pulled out his phone and scrolled to a contact he hadn't called in months. Dad? His daughter's surprised voice answered. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, Emma, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I miss you. And I was wondering if instead of sending you a ticket to visit me next month, maybe I could come there instead? I could take some time off work. We could go hiking like we used to. The silence on the other end made his heart sink, until he heard a small sniffle. I'd really like that, Dad. I've been lost for a while, he admitted, the words coming easier now. But I think I'm finding my way back. After hanging up, James made another call, to his assistant. Cancel my Singapore trip. And clear my schedule for the next 2 weeks. Family emergency. It wasn't exactly a lie. The emergency was that he'd almost lost his family without realizing it. 3 months later, James sat in his Seattle apartment, reviewing documents for a new business venture. But this wasn't another soulless corporate acquisition. It was the paperwork for a foundation he was establishing to help single parents afford childcare and educational opportunities for their children. His phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Still on for rock climbing this weekend? James smiled as he typed back, wouldn't miss it. Bringing picnic lunch. His doorbell rang, and he opened it to find his ex-wife, Catherine, dropping Emma off earlier than expected. She couldn't wait until tomorrow, Catherine explained with a bemused expression. Something about showing you her science project before anyone else sees it. Emma rushed past her mother, carrying a large display board. Dad! I got accepted to present at the state science fair. It's about native plant restoration in urban environments. James hugged his daughter tightly. That's amazing, Em. I'm so proud of you. Catherine lingered in the doorway, studying him with curious eyes. You know, when you suddenly moved here and changed everything, I thought it was some kind of midlife crisis. But this is the happiest I've seen Emma in years. It's the happiest I've been in years too, James admitted. After Catherine left, Emma set up her project on the dining table, enthusiastically explaining her research methodology. James listened intently, asking questions and offering suggestions. This was what he had been missing, this connection, this purpose. Dad? Emma asked during a pause. What made you change everything? You never really explained. James thought about the little girl in the yellow raincoat, her innocent question that had cut through years of self-deception. I got lost, he said simply. And a very wise person helped me find my way again. 6 months after meeting Sophie, James received an unexpected email. The subject line read, from Sophie's mom, the lost girl at the airport. Dear Mr. Harrington, it began. You might not remember us, but my daughter Sophie has talked about you constantly since our chance meeting. She saw your name in a news article about your new foundation and insisted I reach out. She wants you to know that Mr. Hopscotch still flies in his plane every night before bed, and she hopes you're not lost anymore. If you're ever in Portland, she would love to show you her school and introduce you to her teacher with the glasses. Warmly, Olivia Chen. Attached was a drawing of a man in a suit holding hands with a little girl in a yellow coat, a rabbit, and an airplane soaring overhead. Written in a child's uneven handwriting were the words, "Sometimes being lost helps you find where you belong." James smiled and began typing his reply, inviting them to the Foundation's launch event. He glanced at the family photo now prominently displayed on his desk, him and Emma on a hiking trail, both muddy and laughing. Next to it was a small toy plane he'd bought himself as a reminder. 1 year to the day after meeting Sophie, James stood in a classroom decorated with children's artwork, facing 20 curious faces and one familiar one. And that's how meeting Sophie helped me realize what was missing in my life, he concluded his career day talk. I was running a huge company but had forgotten what really matters. Now I still work, but I make time for the people I love. I volunteer. I even coach my daughter's soccer team. Sophie beamed from her desk, Mr. Hopscotch still faithfully by her side. So remember, James said, sometimes the most important directions in life don't come from a map or a GPS. Sometimes they come from a simple question asked by someone brave enough to admit they're lost too. As the children filed out for recess, Sophie's teacher approached him. That was wonderful. The children were captivated. Thank you for inviting me, James replied. Sophie's question that day at the airport changed everything for me. I stepped down as CEO, moved closer to my daughter, and started the foundation instead. I have time to breathe now, to live. And are you still lost, Mr. Harrington? She asked with a smile. James watched through the window as Sophie played tag with her classmates, her laughter visible even from a distance. In his pocket was a text from Emma about dinner plans that evening. His calendar for the weekend showed a volunteer shift at a community garden followed by a movie night with his daughter and her friends. No, he said softly. For the first time in years, I know exactly where I belong. Outside, Sophie looked up and waved enthusiastically. James waved back, marveling at how a chance encounter with a lost child had helped him find his way home. Sometimes the most profound connections happen in the most unexpected places. A busy airport. A chance encounter. A simple question from a child that cuts through all the noise. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories that remind us what truly matters in life. Because in a world where it's easy to lose our way, sometimes all we need is someone to ask if we're lost too.